Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Ernie Davieau. He's an individual from out in the New England area, and he's got an interesting encounter that he had happen to him, and he'll be sharing that today. But Ernie, it's a privilege to finally get to talk to you, and how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a privilege to speak with you today. With my past history on hunting, I've hunted pretty much all my life up until this point here. An Air Force veteran. I hold not just one black belt, but I hold 4 separate black belts in 4 different styles, and that'll come into play down the line here when, because I've done quite a few of these podcasts, and people always ask me, they go, well, why didn't you run? And I'll get into that fight or flight thing here. But this actually happened in the state of Massachusetts, up near Blanford, Drake Mountain, actually, between Blanford and Granville, and it borders Connecticut within a couple of miles. I had hunted this many times. The area that I chose to hunt, I usually hunted by myself in that area also, and I chose it because it was pretty steep in history, and a lot of people were, I don't want to say afraid, but we'll just say really hesitant to go in there, and it didn't bother me. I had I don't want to say didn't believe in Bigfoot, because I seen the Patty film many years ago, even prior to that, when I was a young kid. And I just figured, well, that's probably just one of them. And, by now there's no more, and that's out way far away from me. So, but boy, it would be pretty cool to see one. So that was a long time before this had actually happened. And so I would push off, and people do this when you're out there hiking or whatever. You pretty much push off anything that's not obvious. It's done by humans, and because there's a lot of things that animals in the woods do not do. These beings, I like that word, beings, do things. Some are very subtle, and some are not so subtle. But I had planned my hunt in that area for that particular morning. It was the last week of shotgun season. Actually, it was like the last day or two of shotgun season in the state of Massachusetts, which is, I believe, the first week of December. My plan to get in there was to come up from the Granville Cobble Mountain Reservoir side of Drake Mountain and gain access to the top of the mountain from there. The mountain is actually on 2 sides. It has apple orchards, and the other sides obviously have the reservoirs and a lot of woods, a lot of ravines, gorges, everything else. It'll get you lost or hurt if you're not watching out. But I had figured out that the weather patterns for that day were going to be fairly nice, low temperatures, and the wind would be blowing in my favor if I entered that area from the Granville Reservoir access road, which I did. And I had already scouted that area out, and I had figured out that the deer were going to be bedded down in what I used to like to call like a Stonehenge. They're the Massachusetts Hilltown Hikers Association has hiking trails up through there now, and they were nice enough to actually post a video of that actual route that I took up in through there. And those rocks are, one of them's, I think, 40 feet tall. It's called Lookout Rock or Ladder Rock or something like that. I don't recall ever seeing those names before anywheres. But at the bottom of the mountain, there was a big boulder there that I used for a marker. And that boulder, we never knew who painted it, but it would have the three faces of three different Indians on that boulder. As you approached it from the side, from the right side, it would be one. Then as you got in front of it, it'd be another. And as you got by it, it'd be another. And right after that, there was an old fire road in there, and it gained access to the top of the mountain. Later on, I learned that actually was called part of Unkemit's Path. That goes all the way up into Pittsfield and up into the areas that you're familiar with, that you kind of grew up in and everything. It went across the Russell Mountains, Montgomery Mountains, all the way up and through there. But I learned that later on after my encounter, because that was my thing. Is I never went and studied and looked for anything that really had too much to do with Sasquatch. It was all about me. Why did this happen to me? And you'll hear in the story that generally your encounter is only about maybe between 5 and 11 seconds long, and that's pretty much it. And had that happened to me, I would have been probably like the hero down at the local bar. I could have gone down and got a couple of drinks, but it didn't go that way. Okay, so I basically had to shut up for a very long time. But anyways, as I got onto the access road to go by the Granville Reservoir, and I just passed by my cutoff point there, I call it Indian Rock, and took my left up. I knew from scouting the area the deer were going to be bedded down up near these boulders. And as I got closer to those boulders, it was kind of crispy out, just a little bit, just a little tiny bit of frost out there. And I could see my breath. And sure enough, as I got closer to them boulders, I jumped the deer. And anybody who hunts knows what deer sound like. We call it jumping up. They just pop right up to their feet and maybe stomp their foot or their feet or whatever, and then they start to take off a little bit. And that's what I heard. I knew it was probably 3 or 4 deer anyways. And they proceeded to be traveling in the same direction that I was headed, across the top of the mountain to the other side where the apple orchards were. So my objective, knowing the area, was to just let them simmer down for a minute or two, because they couldn't identify me, and then try to get out in front of them to set up an ambush point as they came through. That's what I was hoping for. So what I did was I started doing what I like to call a two-step, rather than walk like a bipedal, like a man would walk or a woman would walk. I walked toe heel. So it sounded more like a four-legged animal whenever I felt that they might hear me. And I tried my best not to be heard. So any place, there's a lot of shale on that pathway there, and a lot of rock outcroppings, I want to say. So you really kind of have to watch your footing a little bit there. So I was using that method, and I had them now on my right-hand side. I couldn't see them because of the ridge line, but I could definitely hear them, and in hindsight, I could hear something on the other side of them too, but I passed it off to being possibly another deer, driving along with them. And some hunters will say, deer don't push deer. That's not true. I've seen them do it. I've actually seen doe push a buck, drive a buck in a certain direction, actually right up by me. But in this case here, that's what I figured it was. And probably from those boulders to where I was hoping to get to was probably maybe 200 to 300 yards, I'd say. But you've got to operate really slow, and that path will go straight down towards that apple orchard, straight ahead. But then it curves to the right where I wanted to set up my ambush. It does a dog leg. and there's in between the dog leg there's a stone wall, okay? And there's a set of pines that would be on my side if they were going to come through there. That's where I wanted to be, and that's where the brook kind of came out of the mountain right there. So I proceeded to watch my wind direction, move slowly, be as quiet as I could, and I got out there. I managed to get out there. I was really kind of proud of myself doing something like that. And I could hear them coming through these small saplings towards that stone wall. So I had set up my ambush point right there. I had a 12 gauge shotgun semi-auto on me, and I crouched down a little bit and had my shotgun pointed right towards that stone wall because I knew they were going to come over that stone wall. And those saplings, most of them were beech nuts, so it made a lot of sense that they were going to come in there. They're going to probably simmer down a little bit, and then they were going to come over that stone wall, and I'd have my harvest. Well, I heard them coming, and of course, approaching that little cutoff point right there, I made sure that I looked around and there wasn't anything in the vicinity. I didn't want to scare anything else that was there, have them deer run back in the same direction they originally came from, and there wasn't anything there. I didn't see anything there. So now I'm set up facing that stone wall, and to my left, on my 9 o'clock, about 35 yards from me, I noticed movement at the base of a tree. Now I'm thinking to myself, well, really, what can that be? And I look at it, and I thought it could have been a deer. So I got my 12 gauge pointed at it. I'm waiting for it to move and get up a little bit because some people frown on shooting a deer regardless while it's laying down or sleeping. And it just started getting up a little bit more. But during this whole time period here, this is just the beginning of it, I'm trying to remain cognizant of those deer on the other side of the stone wall. Now, this so-called deer started scrunching up to the tree more, and now I'm getting the impression that it is not a deer. It's a heavy-bodied animal, and it's more than likely a bear. You'll hear this a lot of times from people. They'll say, they'll question somebody, like myself, and they'll say, well, how can you mistake it for a bear? It's real easy. Go out in the woods. You might mistake a log for a bear or a deer or a rabbit or even a squirrel or whatever. It's very easy to be done. You've got to be able to put something in that peg in a hole. You can't just, particularly when you're carrying a weapon, you can't just assume that this is what it is and agree with yourself. You have to be looking for those cues. Well, it scrunched up to that tree quite a bit. And I'm thinking to myself, if it's a bear, I've got my shotgun back on it. Because if it's a bear, I don't have a bear permit. And if it bum rushes me, I'm going to have to take action on it, So then I see it getting really close to the tree. And this is my 9 o'clock now, okay? And at that point, it's kind of like up a little bit higher, but it's really close to that tree. And now I can make out. This is the silhouette of a guy. That's what it is. It's a silhouette of a guy. So this is another hunter in here. And I'm going, he must have been sleeping on the ground and I didn't notice him. And now he hears them deer coming through, because now you can hear them deer coming through pretty good. They're moving around in there. And he starts to stand up some, because I'm putting my shotgun back on that area where the deer are. I'm confident that it's pretty much another hunter. But at the same time, I don't want to get shot. Because I know he's Massachusetts. He's got to have a shotgun on him. He's probably loaded with buckshot instead of slugs. And if them deer come over that stone wall, the distance between him and I, if they come in between him and I and he doesn't know I'm there, I'm going to get shot. So I figure I'm going to move up maybe, just a foot or two, just so that he can catch me in his peripheral if something does try to come in between us. And I'd say he's like about 3/4 of the way standing. And all heck broke loose on the other side of that stone wall. I mean, I could hear limbs, not just branches. I could hear limbs snapping. I could hear boulders clanging against each other. And at that point, I'm looking back at him to see reaction, and he's fully standing there with his head on the other side of the tree facing away from me. And it's at that point right there, I'm saying to myself, this is absolutely the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. I said, this is unbelievable. I said, I've got to take a marker on the tree. I've got to find a twig. I got to find a branch. I got to find something on the tree so that I can measure it if everything turns out okay later on. And I actually seen a piece of moss on that tree, a good sized piece of moss. So I put that in my memory bank, that piece of moss. And this little ruckus on the other side of that stone wall was going on, and I'm trying to maintain between the two of them there because I'm still not so sure. I mean, I don't know anybody who would be like right off the bat saying, well, that's a Sasquatch or whatever. I'm still kind of on the line, the borderline now, ready to fall off that fence, that this is absolutely the largest man I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen some big guys, you know, heck, 6'8". You look at people around 6'8", you know, look at some of these basketball players, you know, but he was huge. And that's when he had his right hand on the tree and he had his right leg on my side of the tree. And he put that right leg out and he leaned out on my side of the tree and he looked directly over that stone wall. Well, when he did that, he caught me in his peripheral. That is just what I planned if it was another hunter. And when he caught me in his peripheral, he looked over at me, looked back across at that stone wall, and then snapped his head right back at me. Like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Because I was not hidden. I was pretty much in the open. He just couldn't believe that I was standing there. And that's where, everybody listening remembers when I said that would have been great. I could have gone to the local bar, got myself a beer, and said I seen Sasquatch. I knew instantly when it looked at me what it was. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. At 35, 36 yards, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would have got myself a beer. But no, he had to do something else. He took a full step around that tree, bringing his left leg around and facing me directly. And he put both hands up in front of him, between the chest and the waist, elbows in, elbows touching his sides, I will say, because his arms weren't straight out. His arms were not straight up above his head. They were in between chest and waist, and his elbows were in towards his torso. And his palms were facing me, and his fingers were together. His 4 pointer fingers were together, pointing straight up in the air. And he pumped them twice. I got my 12 gauge right on him. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just thinking to myself, you know, I mean, what do you think of yourself? You know, I'm like, God, if this thing bum rushes me, I'm in trouble. And I'm thinking also about the deer on the other side of the stone wall, believe it or not. I'm saying to myself, I think there's more than one. I think there's more than one. I wasn't understanding some things like that, but I'm thinking there was. He proceeds to give me that hand signal there, and he takes a step towards me. And he's walking gingerly. I had lowered my shotgun because that's the hand signal that he gave me, you know, and it's disturbing. It should be disturbing to some people. He knew how to approach me. He took his right hand, made a fist with his pointer finger sticking out, and he pointed directly to my chest. And he pointed directly to his chest. And again, I'm taking this stuff in, and I'm like, you know, unbelievable. I mean, figure it out yourself, folks. Who are you going to tell this to? So he's still kind of walking towards me, I got my 12 gauge now slung over my shoulder, hanging off my shoulder. And he puts his hands out again as like the first time, except he puts his palms down towards the ground. And he's looking directly at me. And he's closing distance. He's pretty much about, I'd say, more than halfway to me. And then he turns his palms up. You know, I took it to mean that they didn't have any food. He was looking for food. You know, I do have interpretations of the hand signals that he did to me. I call him he because he didn't have memories. All right. I didn't check him out because, let's face it, you know, he's kind of checking me out. I'm checking him out. I didn't want him to get the wrong impression or anything like that. So, as he does that, I'm thinking that there's going to be a point here where I'm going to have to make some kind of hand signals back to him, because this is at that level. At that time, it was at that level. I had checked my before I slung my shotgun. I just want to throw it in there. I had checked. There's a compass on that shotgun. Not that it really works. It was a hand-me-down from my great uncle. But there was a compass on there. I was trying to get in as much information as I possibly could. I let my breath out so I could see which way the wind was actually blowing that morning. I could see my breath. I also looked at my watch. I can't tell you the exact time today, but I can tell you that it was about 10 or 11 minutes after the hour that this happened, that I looked at my watch. At that point, like I said, he kept walking towards me, and now he was extremely close, and he gave me another hand signal, and that one was, he pointed over my left shoulder, pointed over my right shoulder, and at that point there, I figured that that's probably it's going to be my turn to try to do something back. You know, like I said, I had no knowledge of the forest people or these beings or anything before this. Zero on them. I didn't know what they could do or what they understood or anything. But this one obviously appeared to understand quite a bit. And things have changed for me now. I understand a lot more about them. But I parlayed back to him that yes, indeed, we're what I deemed to be equal, because he pointed to me first, you know what I'm saying? And then he pointed to himself, so I deemed that was an important gesture right there, that, yeah, it's cool, we're brothers, we're equal. Then I took my hands and I put my palms, same position as his, and pointed them down to the ground. I had no food. I did not ask him for food. I just said I did not have any food. And then I pointed over his shoulders. At that point, I'd say that he was probably 5 yards from me. And I could see the color of his eyes. I could see the wrinkles on his face. I could see absolutely the length of his hair on his arms, how much hair he had before and after the knuckles, which is kind of hilarious to me, because I've been doing this publicly now for a couple of years, and it's just hilarious how people just, you know, you're looking at him at 50 yards, and trust me, I'll get into this, you can't tell where the hair starts or stops or ends or anything. So at this point, pretty much, he's close enough to me, And this is another thing that this does really bring a question in my mind. Why did he do this next thing? Why? Nobody has an explanation, and everybody wants to say this or that, but I'll tell you what he did. He was close enough to me that at that point, I was standing pretty much right next to him. I was below his shoulder. I was a little bit above his bicep, but below his shoulder. Like I said, I could see the hair. At first, I thought that hair was black, but the sun was hitting it a little bit. I could see the length of it. It was dark brown. Dark brown. Skin tone, pretty much the same thing. You would say it was ash colored even, maybe even black. Okay, some people would say black, some people would say ash colored, or they'll say like black. That's another thing of it. When I listen to people, it's like, what is like an apple pie? There's no such thing as, you cannot describe something by saying, well, it's like yellow or whatever. You've got to come closer to that when you're describing something for an artist or anything. But he held his hand out down between the two of us, palm up. And I looked at his palm. I have no idea, absolutely no idea why he did this. Some people say he was asking me for his gun. Believe me, he didn't need a gun. Okay, he didn't need a weapon of any sorts. I do not believe that was it. And when you hear this, you'll probably agree with this. At that point, when he was reaching his hand up for me to look at his palm and showing me his palm, I was dropping my hand to my sidearm. I carried a sidearm on me, and my right hand had the grip on my handgun was just touching my palm. I was just starting to get a purchase on it. He didn't like that. He tapped his palm. He wanted me to look at his palm. So I stopped doing that, because I was watching his eyes. I'm a trained fighter. I was watching his shoulders, his body movement, and that kind of scared me when he did that. But now I'm all in on looking at his palm. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, okay? Their hands are like our hands. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely. You know, if you hear somebody else that was as close as me, I'm pretty 200% sure they're going to tell you the same thing. But if they've seen the palm, which I have never seen, never heard of anybody, this is what I seen. They had the same he had the same markings on his hands, on his palm, that we have on our palms. The same markings, except for a lifeline. There was no lifeline there. And I'm thinking, was that the reason why he tapped his hand, that he was adamant about this whole situation? I don't know. Why? Why would he do that? It was pretty much at that point there, I looked at him and he nodded his head at me. Like bowed his head almost at me. Like, out of respect or something. Because I think maybe that had something to do with the double take he did on me. Like, how did you get this far? How did you get right here? And he looked over that stone wall, and that's where I was really able to measure myself on his body height, you know, next to him, where I stood on him. And he put both his hands up to his mouth, like the megaphone thing that you would do, like yelling. And he makes these 3 whoop noises. Nobody's ever seen him do that. Nobody. You know, it was unbelievable. You might as well just go down to the zoo and stand next to the lion cage and let one of them roar. It was equal to that. But he made 3 whoop noises. And in between each one, it was a second and a half. And people are going to say, well, how do you know that? I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at counting rounds being shot off. I play a little bit of music myself, so it's all about keeping beat. But there's about a second and a half in between each whoop noise. Looks right back at me, nods his head, looks back over the stone wall, and he whistles. And I've heard that whistle before. That is the whistle that Myself and my hunting party growing up, that is sounded just like a human whistle. Just like a human whistle. And yeah, it was like a come on whistle, like a that kind of a whistle. And he motioned with his right hand by swinging his arm to whomever was on the other side of that stone wall, that he wanted them to go in the direction where basically he originally came from, but it looked further out. Okay. Obviously, he could see whatever it was on the other side of the stone wall. He knew they were already there, because he was taller than me, so he could see, but he knew they were already there. And he gave that hand signal, looked back at me one last time, and he didn't run off. He didn't speed walk off or anything like that. He just kind of smoothly just walked away from me and went past that tree where I originally seen him, to equal out probably another to about the 55, 60 yard mark, I'd say, right in there between him and I at that point when he got to a standstill out there. And he wasn't there maybe, I don't know, I'll say 4 seconds. And I heard this freight train coming through them saplings on the other side of that stone wall, headed towards Drake Brook. It had to cross that dog leg, and I knew that. And I knew that this was not a deer, that this was something very big, much larger than a bear. And it was booking. It was just slaughtering trees as it went through. It didn't even care. And it was like probably going through them trees like a parkour master, like just grabbing things and moving out. When I seen him flash over that brook, or this one here, I should say, flash over the path, that Uncommit's path that dog legs back down, then over the brook, that's when it was more clear. And this thing was, I'm talking fast. This thing could outrun a deer, absolutely no problem. This thing was heels and elbows. Well, it got over to the other one, and they're kind of standing 45 angled towards me, with the big one, the dark one on the left-hand side, and this one here was smaller, not that much smaller, but smaller. And I'll tell you how big that one, how I had to guesstimate that one there. But that one was like a cinnamon colored. And this is when I heard them do this stupid chattering, murmuring thing that I didn't know what it was until sometime much after that I heard the Sierra sounds. That's what I witnessed. And it pointed, I don't know if it was chewing the other one out or what it was doing, but it pointed directly towards me. And that little one, he looked at me, and he looked at the big one. He did a double take on me also. And I'm like, well, I kind of got ratted out there, but, that could be what's going on. Like, they're trying to pull me away from, obviously, the kill that they got with the deer. And he'd made a hand signal to that one to do a semicircle. Like, you would tell somebody to go around behind that person over there. But he pointed towards his chest, like, you go out and around that way. And then he pointed to his own chest with his right hand and pointer finger again. And I'm going to go this way to the left. So one swung left, one swung right. And I'm just a little bit concerned that for some unknown reason, they're going to flank me, maybe to watch me so I don't take their deer kill or whatever. But I knew that I had to, because I was in awe. Quite truthfully, I was in awe. And I had to sort of unfreeze myself from that state there, because I needed as much information as I possibly could. Like, this wasn't enough. And I wanted to go over and measure off on the tree, which I did. I walked over to the tree. And no, I didn't get on the ground. People asked that question. Did you get on the ground and look for tracks? Nah, you don't see anything coming at you when you're on the ground. Okay? You got to be standing up if you want to see something plowing through the woods coming straight at you like it means business. But I found my marker on the tree, that little piece of moss. And today I'm a butcher, so I can make some type of measurements. But I stood next to the tree, measured myself off with my hand on the tree, took a half a step back so I could leave my hand on the tree. Then I measured up from my hand with my other hand, and I come up with 7'8" tall. And I guesstimate that this being, which had blue eyes, by the way, for everybody listening. I think maybe there's only 2 more accounts that are out there, or 3 of them that are, blue-eyed, but they had blue eyes. And I figured it somewhere north of 500 pounds, in excellent shape. And when I say excellent shape, I'm sure that if it wanted to, it could have just picked me up and used me as a spear. And I'm 6'3", and probably at that time I weighed 200 pounds anyways. I was younger back then and in better shape. But I figured I weighed like 209 pounds, somewhere around there. But I could guarantee you that this thing could easily grab, even grab like the Hulk, the wrestler, the Hulk, and just throw him completely out of a ring. These things are just super, super big. That's pretty much it, Jeremiah. Again, who was I going to actually tell this to? Who was going to listen to something like this?
Right. It's an incredible one. What kind of facial emotions did it have while it was making all those hand gestures towards you?
That's an excellent question. That's a really excellent question, and nobody has ever asked that question before. And this has been out there for about 4 years now, just so your listeners can understand this, how long it took me to come forward with this. If you can picture a teacher in first grade, we'll say, even in second grade, if they're good at their job when they're teaching something, they look at their student like they're looking for that flash, like that light to go on. That's what it was like. It was looking at me from the beginning like hold on a second here, until it started doing all the hand gestures. It was very it was a peaceful encounter. It was, let's call it like a teaching moment in a way. It wanted me to know its intentions, and it did that very well. That's the way that it looked at me. I don't know if that is a good example or not, but when you look at a kid and you kind of like, you're waiting for that light to go on, like, do you understand? And then when the light goes on, you continue from there.
Wow. So it was definitely it was hoping that you maybe would get what it was trying to convey through the hand motions. I would take away from that is what you saw. Are you able to put it in a category of more something that was more human or more ape, or was it its own special sort of thing?
That's great. Yeah. We have a lot of things that happen to us when we have trauma or anything like that. It's called uncanny valley.
Right. Yep.
And it's crazy when you hear people, they're adamant. They're very sure of themselves on something like this. But keep in mind, you're looking at time, you're looking at distance, you're looking at light and conditions, you're looking at uncanny valley, things like that. And then you're looking at the description that people might say, well, its nose was like, ape-like. So now we've got that whole thing maybe programmed into our head. It's ape-looking. Now, I can tell you right now is what I was looking at is if you looked up kind of like a solo man, which hardly anybody's ever heard of. But if you look up like a solo man, it's like a cross between a caveman, a Neanderthal, a Native American because of the cheekbones and stuff, and an African American with the skin tone and the nose that it was kind of flattened out just a little bit. So it was like stepping through, and I had a chance. I actually was able to speak with this gentleman. His name is Chief Ernest. And I won't get into the whole story of how I got to speak with him, but this is what we were talking about. And he said that I walked in two worlds. I walked through the veil or whatever. I never understood any of that. But if we were to accept just for a moment in our minds that it was possible to do anything like that, and that's the question that he asked me, did I notice anything around me that was different, or the color tones or anything like that? This thing looked like it belonged in a museum. That's all I can tell people. It looked like it belonged in a museum. It was like if you knew something was missing, but you didn't know what it was, how could you say it was missing? So we have the missing link. How do you know that? How do you know there's not more closer related to us? This thing, quite obviously, looked way more human than ape. The hands, everything about it, way more human than an ape. I don't know if that explains it well enough for you, but yeah.
I'm looking at, it's really weird because I'm looking at a picture, like it's probably a museum exhibit of what Solo Man is. And it's wild how the face I'm looking at fits a lot of the encounter descriptions that I've taken from over the years. It's nuts, dude.
Yeah. And people throw these things out because of their bias a lot of times, or they don't remember. That's why I've stuck around for so long, because I've always felt that I had some pertinent information that I hear a lot of people say, what would you do if you came across one and you're walking down the trail? You're actually out looking for them. You're walking down the trail and you've seen one. And they say, well, I would, poop my pants or whatever. I'd turn and run away. How about the next thing is communication. Remember this didn't really know it knew what I was, but it wasn't sure, because it did that double take on me. It was coming over to check me out too. So when we think of it that way there, our next step should be communication. Now this didn't know if I knew Sasquatch language or Forest People language or Samurai chatter. This wasn't, wouldn't think that it was, I'm not thinking that it ever used mind talk with me. It was using sign language. They traded with Native Americans. What kind of sign language? It was pretty easy, pretty primitive. It'd be something that I would be probably teaching a child, no with my finger or whatever, or give it here or whatever, things like that. But yet people throw that will throw that description out when if I say Neanderthal, well, you can throw Solo Man in there, Right. It's not Neanderthal, but it still is Neanderthal, but it's not, and it's as pretty close as much as you can possibly get. The skin tone that's what everybody actually puts in there also, the skin tone. Mm-hmm. on top of that, and the nose, and the brow ridge. Yeah. The hair length varies a little bit, but the hair length is going to vary with distance and time, and how much light you actually have that's out there. Because I can tell you right now that when that other one met up with the big one there, when the cinnamon color one, I couldn't really make out facial features on it. Okay. Even though I've been all through this already, I could not really make out facial features on that one. At 55, 60 yards out, I couldn't do that. Nor could I make out where the hair actually started and stopped. But when it was standing next to me, its skin blended in so well with its hair that exactly where you have hair like on the backs of your hand, mm-hmm. It's exactly in the same position as theirs, except that it's longer. Okay, so you take like ashy colored skin that's dark brown, or whatever you want to say that it is. I'm a hair color blind, and you add you add 6 inches to that hair on there, and it is hair, then you're gonna see that, boy, you really can't tell at a good distance how much hair it actually has on its face or its whole body. That's how well that it blends in. I'd say this too, as I've heard other encounters. I've got some friends, and this is basically how we met, that have had encounters. It was clean. This thing didn't stink. It was clean. Its hands were clean, like it had gone down to the reservoir and taken a bath. And I've heard encounters where people have actually seen one with a juvenile in like a creek or whatever, actually like playing around, bathing. Why wouldn't they? Some animals do get in the water. They might not be bathing, but they get in the water. Why wouldn't these get in the water too? I think they know the difference. This is smart enough to actually try to communicate with me. Then quite obviously we're underestimating them quite a bit. When people say, geez, do you, I've heard all kinds of ideas on how many are out in the woods and this and that. I've also seen handprints where it's actually grabbed the side of a hillside where the people that did the handprint, the casting, said, well, it has short thumbs, not like ours. Well, it grabbed something. You didn't get a complete casting of that, There's still a lot of things out there about these beings. I think, personally, they have something to give to us. It's very spiritual. Native Americans have talked about this, that in the final days, they refer to a being as Big Brother will come again to dance around the sacred fire one more time before, like, the final battle.
Are you for real, dude? For real?
Yes.
I've never heard that. Wow. Really?
Well, yeah.
Oh, man.
It is. And that's why the opening into that sacred space at a powwow is always facing in the same direction no matter where you go in the world. That he will come again. And for me, from what I've learned through people like Ron Moorhead, and people, I won't go totally into it, and he talks about the quantum physics and everything. And then we just had somebody just pass over, Henry
Franzoni.
I've got yes, sir.
Yeah.
He talks about it.
Yeah.
And I've been in this.
Miss him.
I've been in this position now for 38 years. And I just came out a couple of years ago to talk about it because I have a message to give. And for people to throw it away, it's like, stop your banging on the trees. It's foolishness. They want nothing to do with us because we are warlike. We cannot be trusted. But once they trust you, then they trust you. And then they have something to give to you. And it would probably be something that you just take to your grave with you. Because nobody's ever going to believe it. Okay? I believe strongly it's a very spiritual thing. Now, Chief Ernest told me, and this is a little bothersome, that they have always known me. They have always been around me. And I assure you, when I think back in my past in a childhood, yeah, even though I was unaware, I am aware of a lot of things today. And they said they have always protected me. From what? That's what I want to know. From what?
Yeah.
There can only be one thing.
I could guess.
Exactly.
Yep.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It is really interesting because I've done this show for more than a few years, and I have noticed there's a big trend in the last, especially half a year, where the people I've been talking to, almost all of them have brought up some form of, there was a communication, started communicating to me. I started to get some form of mind speak. And it's like these these people I talk to are from all different sorts of life, parts of the U.S., and it's a very, very interesting commonality that's starting to come out through all the different people that I talk to. So I'm not sure what to make of it.
I can tell you there's a lot of things that go on, and I don't want to say community or anything like that, you know, we don't want to put things in people's heads, but I've been pushing this very strongly for 4 years now, and people are becoming more aware of a simple hand gesture, like crossing the road, maybe drop your hand and put your palm towards the car. It's done that. So now people are actually thinking back on their encounters. You know, before they weren't. 4 years ago, if we go back in our archives, we find people saying they're 12 feet tall, or 15 feet tall, or even 25 feet tall.
Right.
You know, what did you measure them on? You know, that was my main concern, is I needed to take in as much information as I possibly could. Now, you're actually hearing people say they're 7.5 feet tall. Well, okay, but I'm sure you probably have heard my story, okay, so some of these people, and how did you measure that? What did you measure it on, and how did you measure that item in itself? Sibylla Irwin is the one who I did a show with, okay, and she did all the artwork in that show. It's called Sasquatch Uses Sign Language, and it was beautifully done. It took her months and months, 2 to 3 times a week, of her and I speaking back and forth. And she was just blown away by the blue eyes, because how do you describe that? But now today I can describe that. I can tell you, look at a husky, the husky blue. It's like unmistakable, you know? So you have all kinds of people who pick up little things, and now they're becoming more aware of that. Of course, we do have the hoaxers out there, the fakers, the people who want to be the probie in the local bike club, okay? And they just want to be, because they don't never belong to anything else, and that's okay. That's fine, you know, to go out there and camp and to give you a huge idea of what it is out there with the groups and everything. That they all go walking around in the woods, but not a single one of them that I know of actually carries a survival bag, a go bag, a knapsack. Not a one of them. And I just seen a guy fall down a hill 50 feet and tumble down. He had his camcorder thing on his head and everything. And I won't say where he's located or anything like that, but I felt bad because he made a joke out of it, and they posted it on one of the forums, and it's like, buddy, you know, you're supposed to, you want people to be following you around or whatever, but man, if you had broken your spine or your arm or your leg, you're dead, man, because you have no way to take care of yourself out there in the woods. And these are essential things that if you're going to go out there and you're going to prance around the woods, know what you're doing, for God's sake. Know what you're doing. And keep in mind, these things are just as intelligent as I'm implying, plus more. And do you really think that they really want to be having you as their buddy? You're not trustworthy. But to go back on the Native American prophecy, yeah, Chief Ernest told me that. And that blew my mind. So I really got really heavy into prophecies also, you know, and that one there was
is a clincher. What tribe is Chief Ernest from specifically?
Me, I'm Iroquois.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You're Chief Ernest. Yeah.
No.
Okay. What about? Sorry. What about Chief Ernest?
Oh, Chief Ernest is the great grandson. He's still living of, I believe, I want to say Sitting Bull.
Oh.
Okay.
Wow.
Yes, sir. He's the tribal leader for, I think, 3 or 4 nations right now.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. And when I met him, when I met him, he was gosh, I want to say he was late 70s. So it was a privilege to meet him. And then him and we got to dance around the sacred fire because it was right before the ceremonies with the combat veterans and everything. So we went out there and I got to dance around the sacred fire with Chief Ernest, you know. He knew about him. My ancestors definitely knew about him. You know, when I go back in my history and I think about areas that we hunted and things that I was told by our hunting party that they knew, but they didn't want to tell us about it. And I think it was probably all a matter of trust. You know, they had an agreement because I do remember a situation where my great uncle came back with my father and said we were asked to leave, you know, and I was like, geez, you know, and it's because we had found these barefoot tracks and everything. But I was a young guy. I should say a young boy. I was, I think I was maybe 9 years old, and I was prancing around the woods with a 12 gauge, going deer hunting with everybody. So it's something you learned early on how to track and everything. But indeed, they are definitely that intelligent plus more, you know. Morgan Freeman, there's a movie that Morgan Freeman did, and it deals in, I think, the awareness. A lady gets injected with a drug. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And it has to do with the levels of awareness. And like a dog is like a 4, and a dolphin is like a...
Okay, yeah, yep.
Yeah, and a human is like, what? An 11 or a 9, and a dolphin is above us. And there's something very special that happens after like level 20, okay? If you've seen the movies and you know what I'm alluding to here, and you got to take a look at it and say, well, what if? I mean, it's either that or when people say their house is haunted and you got orbs in your house, then why couldn't you have orbs in the woods? From all the Native Americans and colonists and everybody else who's passed away in the woods, or even the forest people. What if? You know? But then again, back when I started this, four plus short years ago, everybody believed strongly they did not eat meat. They believed strongly they did not get in trees. Okay? I assure you that they do. And if they didn't eat meat and they could poof themselves in and out of a portal, then it had no need to run away from me or move away from me, or, you know, it could just take a deer through a portal or whatever. And ghosts don't need to eat meat.
True. Yeah.
You know?
No, that's true. Yeah. You're not gonna eat meat if you're a ghost usually. Man, I just have this, over the last few months, I just have this theory thought that I can't shake. It's just weird. It's like, what if being around or in close proximity to whatever these individuals are, what if it affects us as a human, unlocks something, even something that's old or innate, and allows us to be able to, and I'm going to say I sound crazy for saying this, but it feels like I'm thinking of all the things I've talked to people about, all the different encounters. There seems to be different commonalities that come out. It's almost like people are able to do things or hear things or interpret things after they have like those interactions. It's just weird stuff, man. I don't know.
If I said it was true, would you think I was crazy?
I don't know. Not anymore.
Not after Ron Moorhead. You think, yeah, and Ron Moorhead doesn't want to say it either, nor did anybody else. I can tell you that, yes. And we don't. Some people don't want to talk about it, particularly close up, when it was that close, you know, because you can imagine I could have got a drink off of just spotting it, and I had to do all those other things. Can you imagine if I continue on with the story?
Yeah. Right.
It's way beyond that. So now who's going to listen to me tell them that your next step should be communication? People are going to go, no, this just cannot be, because your mind can't wrap on it. Yep. There's something that they have. There's something they can do that's long forgotten. There's something on a spiritual level, highly spiritual, and it's a gift. And yes.
Yeah, no, it's something I'm working through, and it's, I don't know. I think you're right. I think it's there's other people that have definitely uncovered that before, and definitely Ron Moorhead is one of them, and I need to dig more into his stuff. But
Scott Carpenter.
Oh yeah, true. Yep.
And there's a funny thing about that too, because he was on the same path as me. And one thing that I did notice that a lot of people don't know, that the Cherokee language has a lot of letters from the Hebrew alphabet in it. It has a lot of words from the Hebrew language. It also contains some Japanese words. And that's what I picked up on when I very first heard the Sierra sounds. Not every word. And when I heard this out in the woods that morning, that's what I was hearing. It was just uncanny. It was this chatter that, is just weird. But being in the area that I am in now, Ohio, the Ohio Valley, okay, the great inland sea, where the three sons of Ham came. I've done a lot of reading, and I got to tell you right now that this is, in a way, it's kind of biblical, in a way. And what if what we're fighting is I'm just throwing it out there for you, Jeremiah. What if what we're going to be fighting, or what we're fighting right now, is a spiritual war? And these things, being as spiritual as they are, maybe that's what they are alluding to.
That's 100% a spiritual battle every day. 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no question about that, dude.
So on your level and other people's levels, I'm just saying for them, because the spiritual aspect of this right here is the man that's doing the research in the area where I had my encounter, is he broke off with 3 of the other guys that he was with, sent them packing. And that was like 2 years ago or whatever. And he started doing it in a different way. Okay. They communicate with you they can communicate with you in several ways, but they are just super spiritual. And I think they have something for us that they would like us to learn, They would like us to learn. It may be beneficial to us. That's for another discussion. But
I think I might know I think I might have in mind the individual you're talking about. We'll talk about it afterwards. You mentioned off air, and I don't know if you want to get into this, but you mentioned you were also able to interview multiple other people that have had encounters in the same area as the one you had. Were their encounters similar to yours, or?
There's one man. I cannot find this guy, but I know the story. I know that it's true. It was probably within, I'd say, a quarter of a mile from where I was, under the identical circumstances, that he swore, I don't know if he's still living or not, that he swore up and down that what he's seen, tried to use sign language while he was bow hunting. And it took a deer right in that same area. Yep.
Oh, wow.
And then, then the father of the people, of the woman I spoke with, his daughter, that owned that apple orchard, he used to travel from his house, the back roads, all the way up to Bradley International Airport. And he got right at the base of the mountain, right there between Cobble Mountain and Granville, or Cobble Mountain Reservoir and the Granville Reservoir. And he's seen it come down the side of that mountain and cross the road right directly in front of him. and his description given it, even though it was secondhand given to his daughter, was the same description.
Wow.
Pretty much the same description. And then I've got several that are pretty much the same. I've got one that there was, I think 3 or 4, they're grown up adults now, kids on the opposite side of that mountain that's seen the group of them several times on the opposite side of that mountain. And then there's another one that I know that he was a hunting partner with my brother Fran, and he told me the story of him seeing, I believe it was 4 of them, a male, what appeared to be a male, a female, and 2 siblings or 2 adolescents behind them walking a fence line, an old what's called barbed wire fence line.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much in the same area. I'd say that was probably a half a mile from where I was. And then there's a bunch of other things that have happened there, but absolutely. And does the government know about them? Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, absolutely. I know it for a fact. And I'll tell you, okay, because you can't just say things like that to people nowadays. Yeah. Cobble Mountain Reservoir, they blocked the whole thing off, and you're not supposed to be in there. You never were supposed to be in there fishing.
Okay.
There's 2 cemeteries in there. One they leave on the map. One you might still be able to find, but one they took off the map for obvious reasons. When I tell you what it was called, I believe it was Warfield Cemetery, and it was a black community during the Underground Railroad that made a little town in there. Okay, so they tried to hide it so they can still get money off the federal government by making another cemetery, because they swore that they would never tear that down. But you were not allowed in there, in that area, fishing or anything. And when I had my store, I knew of a couple of friends that I had that went in there fishing, and actually a helicopter came down and got them guys out of there. Took them out of there, right off the ice. They were ice fishing or along the shoreline, got them out of there. But me thinking okay, I'm ex-military. You're going to have a tough time finding me in here. Little did I realize that what was about to happen when I went fishing in there with my buddy, that I grew up with. As we got in there, we had set up that I made a little lean-to on the side of this ridge line, and we had just pulled back almost to the lean-to, and I heard a helicopter coming. So we got way back inside that lean-to. It was really dark, in there, because I was underneath a bunch of pines and everything. And that helicopter came right down, pretty much right in front of us, knew right where we were. There's only one way they could have known that, is ground sensors. And these things were spotted in there. I also have eyewitness accounts of them being spotted in there, which is really not far, half a mile from where I had my encounter or so. So if they knew I was in there with the ground sensors, then you knew anything was in there. You would have known if it was a deer or if it was a bear or a moose or whatever. You knew where we were. So therefore, those things are there, most definitely.
Wow, that's extremely interesting. This is a part of Massachusetts that I didn't really have my eyes on. Like, I've talked to people from October Mountain and Bear Mountain up by Great Barrington. Like, that area is pretty wild, but like, I never would have thought this area over by, I mean, it's not really close, but like, Westfield, Springfield, but it's so interesting.
It's really hard, some of the terrain in there. People say, well, why can't we find a Sasquatch body? Well, you know what? You ain't going to find out where they buried Chief Shakura either, up in New Hampshire, okay? And when you look at it like that, is why can't you find these? Well, I can give you 2 examples. One would be like an analogy, that they go where you can't go. You don't want to go. You're afraid to go. You're not built to go into those areas. That's where they go and they stay, and they'll venture out from there. Now, there's a gentleman from Mississippi, I believe it is. Might be Arkansas. But anyways, his name's Earl. And his grandfather, he had his first encounter, Earl did, on the farm. and his grandfather used to feed them watermelons and stuff. You know, it was kind of like a Mary Green type thing. And long story short, you know, I know his encounter quite well, and he's been on a show to give it before. But what had happened was his grandfather had passed away, and this was just a few years back. So Earl decided he's going to go to the farm, you know, and stay at the farm, you know, and see it one last time, and maybe sell the property, whatever. So he gets up in the morning, and this is going to be in relation to why you can't find the body. And he gets up in the morning, and he goes out on the back porch, and there's 2 watermelons out there on the back porch. So Earl is like a little bit freaked about it. He said, "I got to go to my grandfather's grave." So he goes to his grandfather's grave, okay, the tombstone. And what do you think he finds around the tombstone? He finds these briars that are like braided, okay, like a tumbleweed.
Oh, man.
Around the tombstone, and inside the ring, he finds some apples and pears and a piece of watermelon.
Whoa, dude.
They're gonna put their relatives where you ain't gonna find it. You ain't gonna want to find it. Even if you think you found it, you ain't gonna want to dig it up in a bunch of briars.
Oh, man. That is wild. Wow.
Yep. So These are all things that there are no coincidences. These are things that just present themselves ever since I've had my encounter. I can't get into all of that, but they have a way of presenting themselves, and I know them to be true.
Absolutely. Oh, man, this has been a really extremely interesting conversation, Ernie, and I'm thankful that you came in. I think we had a really eye-opening conversation, especially for listeners. I do want to make sure that we share that you have an interesting side project going on as well, right?
Yes, I have one that I felt that it was necessary to try to push to people to take that next step on communication. And this is on a site that's called, it's all one word, newenglandencounters.etsy.com. And it's under the heading of Sasquatch Uses Sign Language. And this is pretty much, most of the artwork is from the artwork that Sibylla did on the sign language that this being used with me, so you can see it firsthand, and perhaps even wear it to communicate with the public what these things can actually do, to take a stand with me. And you can have any of those sign language things put on anything you want. You just send us a message, we'll put it on anything, because we don't carry a whole lot, and I don't really do the AI thing or anything like that, but some of it might be on there, but you'll know when you see it anyways. But I just want to get maybe people educated on this, and to make a bit of a stand with me and say our next step is communication, and it's going to be with the use of sign language, because at 50 yards, you're not going to yell to them. But at 50 yards, you can definitely tell it that you're its friend or whatever, but
that's very cool. Yeah. And I'll have that link in the show notes or the description. So people can definitely go and check that out. But Ernie, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real privilege to talk to you tonight.
Same here. Absolutely. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.